Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and it is the middle of July, it is blazing hot, and that can mean only one thing: Artscape. And today we're going to talk about the very first year of Artscape in 1982, and we're going to talk about it specifically in relationship to the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra and moving into the Meyerhoff Symphony Hall, which also happened in 1982, and that's not a coincidence, and we'll see why. But first, I just want to say that I'm pretty excited today. We are actually partnering with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra on this video. So if you're tuning in by the BSO's virtual lounge, welcome. And if you're tuning in by Baltimore Heritage's website or YouTube channel, also welcome, or maybe welcome back. All right, so let's step back to 1982. The first Artscape was held in June, not in July, which for my money, I think sounds like a much more sane month to hold Artscape, at least temperature-wise. But there were many things about Artscape that we would recognize today. First, it was pretty big. There were almost 90 artists involved. It had food vendors. There were advertised 15 food vendors from Charles Street restaurants. And it had a lot of visual arts from Baltimore. It had a juried art show, and then it featured 8 different artists of probably the more well-known artists of the day, including Joyce Scott and Emily Rothschild, Linda De Palma, folks like that. And it was held along Mount Royal Avenue, basically from where the main MICA building is, the Maryland Institute College of Art, down to the Mount Royal train station. And in 1982, MICA had converted the old train station into art classrooms. And that was something pretty amazing for the day. They had done an adaptive reuse project. They had taken a building that was built for one purpose and changed it into another. And today in Baltimore, we've got all sorts of adaptive reuse projects going on. It's almost like old hat. We have got mill buildings in the Jones Falls Valley getting converted into shops and restaurants. Woodbury Kitchen, if you've been there. In East Baltimore, we've got breweries being converted into apartments and shops, the Gunther Brewery, for example. And even in West Baltimore, we've got the nation's oldest Jewish orphanage being converted into a healthcare facility. So I think in Baltimore, we've got it down pat. But in the early 1980s, MICA garnered national attention and national acclaim for reusing this train station into art classrooms. The space, the Mount Royal Avenue location was not by coincidence, it was by design. Mayor William Donald Schaefer very much wanted to put Baltimore on the map culturally. He was looking at places like Washington, D.C. and the National Mall, of course, with all the Smithsonian institutions there, the museums, it's a cultural mecca, but also places like Cleveland and the University Square district, which had a hub, which was also a hub of cultural activity. So he decided that he was going to put Baltimore on the map for that. And let me read you a quote by a woman named Jody Albright, Mrs. Jody Albright, as they said in the day. She headed up the mayor's committee on arts and culture and also headed up the first Artscape. Here's what Miss Albright said about the location. She says, "This area around the new concert hall," that's the Meyerhoff behind me, "is almost like a centerpiece for the city. I mean, think about it. There's the concert hall itself with a design the whole country is going to be talking about. Then there's the theater project and the Lyric and the Maryland Institute and University of Baltimore. There's Corpus Christi Church, all newly cleaned, and its school building where the Baltimore Ballet is now located." So the mayor and Miss Albright were very much trying to market this area as a cultural district. Miss Albright actually goes on in this quote to sort of expanding concentric circles to talk about the cultural district, including the Walters and Peabody, and then Center Stage, and the Arena Players, and then she gets all the way up to Hopkins, Homewood Campus, and the BMA. I think that might be a little bit too big a circle. We're going to stick to Mount Royal, but she was quite enthusiastic about our space in the world of cultural districts. So the first Artscape, in addition to visual arts, had some displays. It had blacksmithing display, it had a decoy display, it even had a display on a new type of art, or relatively new back then, called video art, and it had some more than its fair share of wackiness. In addition to all the other things that were going on, it had a 50-foot inflatable statue made of 4,000 pieces of recycled plastic. So wackiness has been part of it all along. And then it focused on music, and music was very much a center of Artscape then as it is now. One of the performers was Baltimore's own Ethel Ennis. If you know Miss Ennis, she famously sang the national anthem a cappella for Richard Nixon's second inauguration, and her rendition and a cappella singing of it caused quite a stir across the country. It really broke new grounds. She sang a tribute to two other Baltimore singers, Billie Holiday and a woman named Ellen Cohen. And if you're scratching your head and say, well, I know who Billie Holiday is, but I don't know who this Ellen Cohen is. Well, when she left Baltimore and made it big, she changed her name to Mama Cass of the Mamas and the Papas. So that was part of a tribute to her, was this Baltimore-centered music scene. And the very first art piece in Artscape to kick things off was none other than the BSO. So we're going to circle around to the BSO here. None other than the BSO performing on the main Decker stage along with the Morgan State Choir and the Baltimore Opera Company. And they performed a concert rendition of Porgy and Bess. And that's how the whole thing, the whole Artscape, the first Artscape, got kicked off on Friday night, was with the BSO.
Friday night's activities climaxed with a performance by the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra under the direction of George Curry for a concert of works by Charles Ives, Scott Joplin, and George Gershwin.
And in the intermission, during the intermission of that show, Mayor Schaefer presented, and I'm going to read this so I get the name right, he presented the Mayoral Award for Outstanding Support of the Arts by a Private Citizen. And this was the first arts award in Baltimore. And he gave it to, of course, Joseph Meyerhoff. Meyerhoff had been chair of the BSO board for years and years, I think over 20 years, from the 1960s to the 1980s. And he pledged $5 million to make the Meyerhoff Symphony Hall, the concert hall that would bear his name, possible. I believe in the end he actually ended up contributing almost double that to make this possible. And over his 20-plus year stint as chairman, he probably doubled that amount in annual contributions to make the BSO a world-class orchestra, the one that we know today. So a very fitting first recipient of this mayoral award at the BSO. The BSO, the Meyerhoff Symphony Hall, though sadly in June, was not quite done. And Jody Albright's sort of one remorse about Artscape, she thought it went swimmingly well, but her one remorse, and let me quote her on this, she said, was that the Meyerhoff wasn't open. She says, "One day we will think of it as the focal point of the Mount Royal Cultural Center, but for this year it just isn't finished, and we'll just be able to enjoy it from the outside." So I'm going to close by again saying thanks to all you BSO folks. I will have to say to all of us who love our BSO, and I'm going to say our on purpose, as you may know, the BSO started in the 19-teens as an arm of city government. It was the first of its kind when it got going that way. And even though now it's a private nonprofit, not part of the city government, I think all of us in Baltimore still call it our BSO. So thanks to all of you all who have helped make the BSO get going and also make Artscape get going. And then let me just close with this final thing. The BSO did move into the Meyerhoff Symphony Hall in September of 1982, so missed it just by a few months for Artscape. And the first concert that was held here was conductor Sergei Kamasina, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, led a performance of a work called Housewarming that he had written specifically for the occasion. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.